The hell was that? So y'all think this is funny? Oh, let's just kill off T-Dog when no one expects it and then replace him with Tyler Perry. Ha 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 ha. Not funny. So were the writers of The Walking Dead high this episode? Were they like passing around a joint and thought to themselves, you know what would be totally revolutionary? If we like made episode 4 the finale and then made like the finale episode 4? And then like all the other writers were just kind of like in agreement. Yeah, that would be totally revolutionary. Like, what are you thinking? So this episode starts with Daryl, T-Dog, and Rip doing the daily zombie apocalypse field work, while Maggie and Glenn got it in the guard tower. I personally thought the coming joke was hilarious, but apparently Maggie didn't think so. So at this point, the 2 prisoners who were locked away, Tyler Perry and the Sons of Anarchy reject, show up crying and begging to become part of Rick's quasi-dictatorship. Now, in this particular scene, the cop side of Rick actually really comes out because you can really tell that he's dealt with the criminal element before and has no trust for them whatsoever. Tyler Perry gives one of his famous Medea speeches in a last-ditch effort to get Rick to let him join the group. The other members of the group decide to go off and have a talk about it and figure out what they want to do with the 2 prisoners. T-Dog all of a sudden decides to become a bleeding heart liberal and tries to save the world one reformed prisoner at a time, while the rest of the group is like, fuck him. Then Rick tells a whole fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me story, and decides to basically not let them in the group. Cutscene, and now we're back at the David Koresh compound, where Michonne is going all Dick Tracy trying to figure out exactly what happened with the soldiers that the governor killed. Michonne keeps asking questions that the governor really doesn't want her asking, but he still has an answer for every question that she asks, and he doesn't bat an eye or flinch. This guy is a certified true liar. Now, I'm going to be very clear about something. We bounce back and forth in this episode of The Walking Dead between the David Koresh compound and the prison. And quite frankly, there was so much going on in the prison that I really didn't care what was going on in the world of David Koresh and his minions. So don't be surprised if I just start kind of blazing through that aspect of the show. We head back to the prison and Hershel's back. Hershel is one tough son of a bitch. He doesn't even bat an eye. He gets up and he's like, where are my crutches? Let's go for a walk. And doesn't hesitate. I really do like Hershel. Now we flip back to Michonne and Andrea, and they're both sitting around trying to figure out what their plans are whenever they decide to leave Pleasantville. Now, I have to say this. I kind of get where Andrea's coming from as far as wanting to stay in Pleasantville. I mean, you're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse and you found a fortified position with food, shelter, and water, and companionship. I can see the argument for not wanting to leave, but sometimes you just have to trust your gut. The last thing you need is to be in the compound when everybody decides to go all heaven gates on you and you don't see it coming. At that point, I'd rather try my luck outside of the walls and deal with the walkers who I know exactly what they're doing. So now we bounce back to the prison at this point. And it's at this point that it's like somebody took a gallon of gasoline and a match, poured the gasoline all over this episode, threw the match, and everything just explodes. Daryl, Glenn, Rick, and T-Dog are working on one side of the prison. And on the other side of the prison, you have Carl, Lori, and Hershel. Hershel walks out and everyone sees Hershel's in good health and everyone's standing around smiling and you know it and you feel it. Something bad is about to happen because everyone's too happy. And when everyone's too happy during a zombie apocalypse, something has to go wrong. It's mandatory. And sure enough, a flood of walkers come creeping out of nowhere. And now Lori, Carl, Hershel, and his uninteresting daughter are now trapped. Okay, so it may mention in the other episode of The Walking Dead that the writers obviously love cross-draw holsters for some reason because the governor, Maggie, and a couple other people like to wear their guns on the weak hand side with the gun facing backwards. Well, I take that back. The holsters aren't cross-drawn, they're just fuck-ups. Maggie can't figure out which hand she wants to use to grab her gun because her gun's on her weak side backwards. So she's using her right and her left hand to grab her gun, having to twist it and turn it around to get it oriented the way she wants to. It's ridiculous. Anyway, Lori takes the first shot at the zombies that are swarming them. And ironically enough, Lori actually has a decent grip. Granted, the gun has absolutely no recoil, but she does have a decent grip. So everyone on the other side of the prison is seeing what's going on with the zombie swarm, and everybody's scrambling to go help Lori, Carl, Hershel, and his uninteresting daughter. So now Maggie and Carl are in the courtyard popping up zombies trying to help them. Carl's using the same stupid double index finger to pull the trigger. But to his credit, he actually tries to give some semblance of recoil, even though he looks like he's doing the Village People YMCA dance when he does it. YMCA, it's fun to stay at the YMCA. So now Herschel and his daughter Taylor Swift, yeah, I finally gave her a name, break for an enclosed area, but Herschel's daughter, who has 2 legs, runs in front of him, gets in the enclosed area behind the gate, and then yells at her father, who has 1 leg, to watch out behind him. Go help him, you idiot. You see why it took me so long to get her a name? She's an asshole. Herschel goes all rock'em sock'em robot with his crutch on the zombie and then finally makes it into the enclosed area and locks themselves in it. And now Daryl, Glenn, and Rick are running towards them to try to save them. Is it me, or does Rick always seem to have these obligatory running scenes where he has the Colt Python in one hand and then the flappy holster is flapping in the wind trying to hold on for dear life? Jesus Christ, get him a new holster. The one he has is broken. And for some reason during these running scenes, he looks Italian. I don't get it. So Herschel and Miss Can't You See You Belong With Me are held up on one side of the prison. Lori, Maggie, and Carl held up on the other side of the prison. And Carol and T-Dog are in the courtyard popping off zombies. And now a moment for T-Dog. Just like that, huh? 4 episodes into season 3 and you just kill him just like that. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You could have made history. You know what? Fuck it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Just kidding. So T-Dog gets bit by a walker while he's trying to close the gate and save everyone, basically. After he gets bit, he throws the walker on the floor, shoots him with his Smith & Wesson Ladysmith, and then throws the gun on the floor and takes off running with Carol. Cutscene, and now we're back at the Heaven's Gate facility where Angie is talking to Meryl and giving him a map, showing him where the farm was where she last saw Daryl, his brother. And then blah, 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 blah. Meryl tries to sleep with Andrea, blah, 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 blah. We find out that the governor helped Meryl when he was down, blah, 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 blah. Meryl thinks the governor's a good guy, blah, blah, blah. Let's go back to the prison scene. Glenn, Daryl, and Rick finally make it to the side where everyone's being chased and eaten by zombies. And Rick talks to Herschel and Taylor Swift about where Maggie, Lori, and Carl went. Now, I noticed something about Rick that he likes to do whenever he has this Colt Python in his hand. He likes to talk with his Colt Python and just kind of points it at people indiscriminately, even people he doesn't plan on shooting. And he'll ask questions like this. Now, I understand we're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, but I'm still going to need you to exhibit a bit of some muzzle control. Okay? Just a little bit. Thank you, sir. Management. So Glenn determines that the chains on the gates weren't broken by the walkers, but actually cut off by somebody else. And at this point, the sirens to the prison start going off, attracting every walker from a mile away towards the prison now. Rick actually reloads his Python. Now, I don't know where he got the ammo from. And I honestly don't care, considering I haven't seen a reload in The Walking Dead since season 1. Now we're with Carol and the dying T-Dog. And yes, the writers were fucked off for killing him in the 4th episode of season 3. But I will say this. I'm glad they let him go out like a boss. Because at this point, T-Dog throws himself to the zombies in order to help save Carol's life. So at least, I guess he didn't die for nothing. And now for a little bit of sunshine. So of course Lori's about to have her baby in the middle of a zombie breach. So Lori, Maggie, and Carl have to huddle up in some room to get away from the zombies while Lori tries to have her baby. Cutscene, and now we're back in zombie Mayberry. Blah, 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 blah. Meryl wants to go find his brother. Blah, 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 blah. The governor doesn't want to let him. Blah, 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 blah. Meryl's kind of angry about it. Back to the prison. Lori is really trying to have this baby now. She's standing up trying to push and squeeze the baby out, and she's not even completely dilated. It's just too much. I've spent 3 seasons watching people get ripped to shreds by zombies, but for some reason there's something about this scene that was just cutscene. Now we're back at the governor's palace, and here Andrea and the governor have a moment together, I guess. I really honestly didn't pay too much attention to the scene because I was just ready to get back to the prison scene where all the action was going on. But from what I can tell, the governor wants Andrea's booty. Andrea really doesn't want to leave, but she kind of wants to leave. But she's attached to Michonne. Blah, 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 blah. Back to the prison. Now we're back in the prison with Rick, Glenn, Daryl, and the 2 prisoners. And we find out who's been letting the zombies out. Remember that Red Tail's reject that Rick supposedly allowed the zombies to kill? Well, yeah, he never died. I told you. So now he's running around the prison, causing havoc and trying to get everyone killed by zombies. So at this point, the Red Tail's reject and Rick get into a squabble, and in the process, Rick loses his gun. It's at this point that Tyler Perry comes and picks up the gun, turns into Alex Cross, and holds both of them up at gunpoint. And it's at this point, Alex Cross has a decision to make. Does he shoot Rick and help the Red Tail's reject take over the prison again? Or does he shoot the Red Tail's reject and align himself with Rick? Well, he decides to shoot the Red Tail's reject and then hands Rick his gun back. I'm going to point something out to you if you haven't noticed yet. There's a black man quota on The Walking Dead. And for the last 2 episodes, they've been over that quota. So now they thought it was a good idea to thin the herd and get rid of T-Dog and the Red Tail's reject and leave us with Medea. So now we have our new token black guy, Tyler Perry. So now we're back with Lori, Maggie, and Carl at this childbirth scene. Now, watching a normal childbirth is hard enough. Watching a zombie apocalypse childbirth is just unbearable. So Lori has a choice. She can save herself and lose her baby, or have the baby and die. See, in this scene, they really tried their hardest to make this a tearjerker. Lori was crying, Carl was crying, Maggie was crying. Hell, my girlfriend was crying. But for me and a bunch of other people who just can't stand Lori, we really didn't give a shit. We've been trying to get Lori killed off since season 1. So as far as we were concerned, Lori, walk towards the light. A matter of fact, run towards the light as fast as you can. And now Maggie has to perform a C-section. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why this scene was so long. This shit is gross. So Maggie saves the baby and delivers it successfully. But now Carl has to kill his mother. Carl's all crying and then finally decides to go old Yeller on us and cap his mom. So at this point, everyone who's left in the group is congregated in the prison yard. And it's at this point that Carl and Maggie walk out holding Shane's baby. I have to be honest, I think Rick's meltdown is probably the most realistic meltdown that I've seen on television from someone who just found out that basically their son killed their mother. So with that being said, that is the conclusion of episode 4 of The Walking Dead season 3. And I'm MrColionNoir, and I'm out.